It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello friends, I am Rob and this is my State of the Dungeon address. This is a long distance address because the game has passed, but I still want to get this record down because I think it's important to do that. But I was in the throes of writing my latest adventure, Shadows of Genzikon, and I needed to finish that, so I did let a few things slip. This was the game that took place on the 9th of June. The game was Gooey Cube, the foulest of spirits. We're heading towards the tail end of it, and for this particular session, all players were in attendance. So that was Vaness, Brandel, Haranen, Glyn, Krendon, Ventov, and Kenna. And this was after the horrible things that had happened up with the butchers. And now the party was in the company of several of the Hanatas who had been looking for them. And no small few either. This was Glendon and Grelda, and of course Skizig and Vestia, the wizards of the order. They were looking for the party. They found them at the Mangy Hound Tavern. The group let them in. They talked for just a little bit before they had to go back. So after a very little roleplay with Rolf talking about the various dangers and things, and kind of appraising them in the situation that their leaders were not back yet after a short journey, Rolf was of the opinion that the Hanatas had bought themselves a little time at least. It's probably too much to hope for true understanding, but at least Rolf with his cousin or his nephew Jonas there had been saved from the butchers, and the butchers decimated. Yeah, they were probably going to be okay for a bit. So, they were strongly requested that it was time to go back to camp, and the group was more than happy to do so. So, they all went in the company of the other Hanatas, and made it back to the camp. It's amazing how few problems you have when you have high-level wizards with you, higher level than your group is. They got back to camp, and people were excited to hear that they had returned, but they were pretty exhausted. And Vestia said, look, you've been through a lot tonight, and we're really grateful that you got the stuff back that you went after. Certainly Mother Sylvenza will appreciate it, but you need sleep. Go rest. You're relieved of any of your duties. You need the rest. So they did. They slept. And they had a fitful night, but for the most part, they got up feeling refreshed in general. Although still tired, they were kind of in a position of holding at the moment. Because, again, Boreg, Kalnase, and Cray the Blade have not returned. So the entire camp is ready to leave like that, with the exception of course, Brother Anton's tent, which is still up because that is where Mother Sylvenza and Vezi are being treated while they're in their catatonic state. So, life goes on, eh? A series of different re-meetings happened as the group kind of tried to negotiate for the things that they needed to have done. Actually, I do stand corrected. Ventov's player was not present, so Ventov had a ring of fire weakness, which he thought was a ring of fire resistance, but it was cursed, and so he had Vestia remove it from him. So she memorized the spell to do it, and spent a lot of time making him look really foolish, so that he would kind of learn not to just slip on magical rings whenever they presented themselves, which we'll see if lessons learned. The rest of the group, they basically tried to stay active. There was a period of time where it's just like, we need to get everybody, motivated. So they had a fight. They summoned up all the other any of the Hanatas who wanted to prevail, but mostly the older Frenta, and had a kind of an off-the-cuff tournament. The prize, the glass eye that they had found, that Haranen had kept. I can't remember which one it was taken out of, but one of the butchers. Glass eyes are kind of cool, actually, so there were a lot who were just interested in blowing off some steam. Sparring! It was kind of supposed to be a sparring thing on the urgings of Kenna and Brandel, but well, it was for a prize, too, and it was for pride. So basically we matched up most of the unplayed Frenta who were available for the characters to select in the beginning, and they traded off, not going all in and seeing who could beat the other in a straight fight. It was 3 contested combat rolls to see who struck the best, and after 3 rolls, you pretty much knew who had won. And that's what we did. And the party was pretty well spoken for. Many of them entered, and matched up against the others, they did fairly well. The surprises were the Agents of Jinx kind of dominated, and the monks of the order, well, this kind of was their thing. They were using blunted weapons, so the monks were just like, we'll just punch you. And it went all right. I'm not going to go over wins and losses here, but the winner of the whole thing was himself Haranen. And yeah, there were some very close bouts, but Haranen just dominated everybody. His dice were so good. So he got to keep his own glass eye, and everybody got a bit of a workout and a couple of fresh bruises to remind them to move faster. It was, all in all, a pretty good offing. So then the group kind of settled into things to try to, keep an eye out on the edges of the camp to make sure the camp didn't have any other painful surprises, because there's still that feeling there's something out there. But they mostly tended their attention to the road, and a proper caravan of a lot of the people that they had met with came by, many in gratitude for the things the party had done. For example, those 2 priests that they had saved from assassination came by and gave the group a nice big satchel with lots of healing potions and other nice things for their faith and for their good work. The alchemist whose daughter they had saved came back, and she gave them a bundle of potions. That, again, a nice prize to be sure. And they also had a wagon that came by that had some they had a wagon that came by that had some dwarves who wanted to buy some of Stoof's ale, and the group just happened to be a go-betweens and help that out, so that worked out well. There were a variety of things that were basically the repayment of the good deeds that they had done before, which I think was kind of nice. The group certainly seemed to appreciate. And then the group had Freisha, fire hair, dark skin, long reddish hair, came running up to them and goes, "Mother Salvenza is awake. Come to the tent immediately." One other thing that bears noting was that there had been a message that had come for Mother Salvenza. And it was a message that was supposed to go to her, but she was unconscious, so they brought it into the tent, and it was laid to rest next to her, so that when she woke up, she could see it. Which was good. But at the same time, how can I put this? They were overcome with curiosity, and Crendon snuck in to the tent and ended up getting the message and reading it and copying down the important bits, and then he rolled it back up. He was, he was ready to put it back. And they got called in, and Mother Salvenza's just just besides herself. She's seen things while she was unconscious. And she says, "It's very urgent. We must leave immediately. Get the wagons ready to go. We must travel out of here, beyond the road immediately, or we will all perish. And you," pointing at the band in front of her, "you have all proven yourselves. You are ones that we will need going forward. From this point on, you are no longer Frenta. You are more than just the Zatis. You are Hanatas," making them level adult members of the group, which is something that usually happens during, rites and honors and a big party and stuff. This brevet promotion is not something that is out of that any of them really would have imagined. But she pulled her rank as Prima Bondurun, and nobody's going to question her, so now they are all proper Zatis. She also said, well, they've also been given charge of the first wagon, which is usually what Boreg and Kalnase do. They are the mouthpiece for the troop. They meet everybody on the road, and they are the first to defend the group, and they look out for dangers. Well, now it's the party's turn, which is, again, an interesting honor. So they're all pretty happy about that and stoked to move forward, and at this point, they find out that they are getting some help, some advice, and that's coming from Vestia, who looks a little tired yet, but she's awake, and she's got her powers of an advanced mage. She will be their counsel, but she's letting them do most of the work. She'll ride up in the wagon, and they'll need a driver, and everybody else is to do the other jobs, like scouting and foraging and dealing with people, taking care of the horses, making sure the wagon stays intact. That's the party's job. So, they also generally range a little bit further forward because the rest of the wagons are a little slower. Some of them are slowed down by livestock, for instance, or by the fact that they are carrying an owlbear and a manticore. So the first wagon is a bit faster and generally kind of scouts and leads on ahead. So the group led on ahead. It certainly was an interesting thing for them to finally leave Nevermore behind, but they traveled along the road, and I think they were happy for that. After a few small encounters, they eventually made it to the Blackwater Bridge, which is a landmark on the map. And when they got there, they looked it over. It's not something that drovers of wagons would really look forward to, as the bridge is fairly narrow. But it is wide enough for all of the wagons. They've traveled this bridge before. And it's sturdy enough to carry a wagon at a time. It's just there's no maneuvering on it, and it would be a terrible place to be ambushed. And as the group went out and investigated around, they were ambushed. So yes, there were 4 pairs that were attacking. There were 2 archers on either side of the banks firing crossbows at the group. There were 2 slashers on either side that came out from the trees, and they engaged right away. Now the group has... It's oversized. I mean, they have 6 players. So they were able to respond with fire. Glenn certainly helped out there. But also the others are quite capable. The others are quite capable of fighting as well. And they met steel for steel. The attackers actually fired a few crossbow bolts at Vestia. But Vestia has magical protections. She wasn't harmed, but she decided to more than even the odds and threw a fireball which cooked 2 of the archers. The only other ones who survived were those other 2 archers who ran the heck away. Well, no. 1 archer did and 1 groundling. But their boss also came in, because at one point Kenna got knocked to the ground. Because, Kenna is a spell dancer, but she's still a wizard. So it's kind of... she plays with fire when she gets into combat, despite the fact she can do ridiculous damage with her Seric Iron Greatsword. But this brute came in with a great axe and tried to fell her. It didn't go so well. Haranen was her defender at the time, and he took this guy to task. Just, by this time, most of his men were taken care of, and it just concentrated on the leader and felled him. The group did quite well in taking care of this ambush. Certainly, they did not see this as a long troop of Hanata's wagons. They thought they only saw one wagon because the rest were around a bend in the road that led to the bridge. That was a fatal mistake for the bandits, but all in all, the bandits that did survive, there were two of them, they ran away. One of them was enveloped by fear. He was attacked magically. The other one looked like he was heading back along a path that had been used before, which may betray that they had a camp. And this was what they were planning to do, because any bandits that were left alive or unaccounted for could attack the rest of the wagons as they crossed the bridge. So it was their job to take care of that. So that is where they are going next time, to take care of the bandits at their camp and see what they can find. So, nice little bit of combat to wash out the night, and that is where we will leave it. Until next time, my friends, thank you for joining me. This has been my State of the Dungeon address, and I have been Rob. So until next time, farewell.